Are you happy? What is happiness? And why do I even bother talking about it? That's a really good question. But I'm sitting here in my school bus. I thought it would be a good place to make a quick video. I say quick as if my videos are short or something. It's the question of happiness is an interesting one. I find myself with certain topics, and I start talking about things, I can get really into them and just go right off the cuff, off the top of my head. But often it's better to have notes in front of me, so I know what I'm talking about and I don't get distracted. But trying to take notes on something like happiness is, it's just pointless. There's so much to say about how people perceive the world around them and how that affects their demeanor, how it affects their, attitudes towards one another. A good example, I guess, would be, I watched a short video earlier about the 10 worst states to live in. And I was talking with somebody in the comments about how it's really subjective, If you spend all your time in the city, it might be the perfect example, might be Oregon, for example. Some people are like, well, I love where I live and I'm happy. Others are like, it's miserable and I want to get the hell out of here. And it seldom really comes down to the actual politics or situations that we see on the news or elsewhere. And my example would be, if you walk down in downtown Portland in some of the worst areas during the worst times, it's going to seem like a war zone. But most of the time, things are relatively calm. However, outside of the main city, it's a beautiful state. There's mountains to hike, there's desert, there's ocean, there's so many places you can visit. So I guess what I'm saying is we base where we live on the name of the state and the politics rather than the actual beauty of the state itself, which gets overlooked by some. And I say that because I feel like one of the first and foremost aspects of being a happy person in your life, or having happy moments, and I'm going to get to that, there is no such thing as being a happy person. It's a complete misnomer. It's an illusion. And a lot of people are chasing that illusion. But anyhow, how you perceive the world around you, your perception of what's happening, is 90% at least of how content and happy you will be in your life. And I can say that confidently because there are people who are given everything in their lives. They have everything on a platter, servants, the extreme wealthy princes of Saudi Arabia, right? The option to do anything they want in their lives. And you hear them talk about being unhappy or being depressed. Wealthy people get depressed too. And that's important to point out because often what we're looking for to become happy is, if I could just get that job, or if I could just make that money, or just whatever it might be, get that thing, buy that thing, or that land like I want right now. One thing I want in life is to buy some land. I think that would make me happy. But do I think it's going to be a permanent fix on happiness? No. I don't want it to be happy. I want it because the things I will do on that land would make me happy because I enjoy being productive and getting things done. So there are things that can give us, increase our happiness in life. But like I said, there's the wealthy man who's miserable, and then there's the extremely poor man who, through his own mental faculties and his willingness to look at things differently through a different lens, decides he doesn't want that. He doesn't care if he's wealthy or not. And this is pretty transparent. I've seen true happiness in some poor communities in other countries. When people come in to do an interview, you're only seeing the face of the people that you can see through the interviews and through the documentary. However, you see true smiles, true happiness, people having a good time. I'm not saying that being poor equals being happy, but there is something to be said about trying to hang on to what we have and move forward. Moving up on the rungs, moving up on the ladder, trying to be better every time, every year, doing something, new and growing. The idea of growth, I think, is what holds us back from truly being happy. Growth in a society. This is, for example, in a larger picture here, We were told that growth would bring us happiness. It would bring us better medicines, better foods, capitalism as an example. That we just work hard and produce more and more, and eventually everyone will be happy. And that's just not true. It's absolutely false, and we can see it today. People seem more miserable than ever. And a lot of the people who are miserable are living like kings of the past, right? I mean, we are a gluttonous society. We have more than we need. The fact that people go out and buy Gucci clothes and handbags, to me, is just a total sign of decay. It's a decaying society. And I can tell you, you could give me the most expensive handbag on earth, and that wouldn't bring me any happiness, except for the fact that I could sell it and buy something useful. And I'm not being scathing towards those who buy big ticket items. If you want to spend money on pointless shit, then that's your choice. But the truth is, happiness does not come from things. Happiness does not come from success. Happiness does not come from, well, success is defined in many ways, but I will get to that too. If it's the right success, then yes, it can. The success of moving past materialism, learning to enjoy the things you have, your time here, without being overly obsessed about what might happen tomorrow, or what did happen yesterday, or what might have happened yesterday. You know, we get preoccupied with our own lives and with all the distractions that we have out there. And I feel like we're being held back by our own attachment to outcome. That we expect something out of life. We expect life to give us something. When I was young, I remember, I should say, I don't remember specifically, but I remember as I got older looking back and thinking, you know, there was a time when I was a kid where I thought that once I become an adult, I'll have this figured out. And the adults will never tell the kids that they don't know anything. And I don't mean the kids, I mean the adults. That adults are just working on the information that they were given. The fact that we have life coaches and people who are writing books about happiness, any title of a book should be Happiness, you've already got it. Or Happiness, it's unattainable. And that sounds negative, but it's not. There are some people who are so negative out there and just so wrapped up in their misery that they refuse to ever be happy. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that happiness is not an enduring state. It's not a permanent state of mind. And as long as we're aware of that, then we can start to work towards realizing that happiness is fleeting. Therefore, not only fleeting, but in direct contrast to some of the misery that we have. In the most extreme cases, this could be like bipolar disorder within society in a way. The fact that one moment everybody's ecstatic and everything's grand, and the next moment everybody's miserable, and these things rub off on other people. And this is partially the reason why I want to get the hell out of society. But I've also grown to realize there's no escape. I'm part of society. And I realize that interacting with my fellow mankind is part of my job as a human being, and that's part of my happiness. You know, I used to think that I was an outgoing and extroverted person when I was younger. Because I'd go out with my friends, I was kind of a hippie dude, go to dead shows, things like that. And then I quickly realized that I had no interest in really hanging out with big groups of people. Eventually, I started to realize I isolated, and I tend to hide away sometimes. And it was only in recent years I realized I'm an introvert, more or less, but I just love to, on my own time, go out and experience fun things with groups of people. But I need my spot, my isolation. I'm a human being trying to figure this shit out, just like everybody else. And because of that, I definitely don't have the answers. I don't want the answers. The answers only bring more questions. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are on the self-help kick, where you're going out and you're looking for this way of thinking that's going to bring you contentment. And to sum that up, I'd say the best thing you can do is just observe others. It's probably the best way to gauge whether people are truly happy in their way of thinking. If religion brought happiness, for example, then you would see that religious people are all happy. If money brought happiness, you would see that money brought happiness. But it's not the case. In fact, misery loves company, but beyond that, happiness does too, and attracts, we tend to attract others who are more positive thinking if we put out that effort. But some people take it to such an extreme that they think everything's fine and dandy. Don't talk about anything negative. Don't worry about the problems in the world. Close your eyes to it and just live your life in blissful ignorance. And in past years, I would almost say that that's a bad thing. That we should participate, that it's our obligation to be part of society, and even those painful things we should be aware of. I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. I've done a lot of thinking about it. In other words, does the man who moves to the mountains to escape society, regardless of the fact you can't escape society, is he doing harm to himself, or would he be better off with other people? Or rather, is it his duty as a human to participate in society? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Every human has a unique path that they have to find, and they will change over time. Some of the things I thought I might have wanted to do, I don't want to do anymore. And things I never thought I'd be interested in, I am. And this is change, and this is what life's all about. Moving forward, trying to accept the changes as they come, and do the best we can with what we have. And I think a lot of the misery comes from people trying to hang on to the past. You know what I mean? People who are so obsessed with the good old days and the way things used to be, that they want to bring that back, but only in the capacity that they can understand it. In other words, when people talk about the good old days, back in the 50s and 60s, let's say, and you think, well, that's great if you were white in America, but maybe not so much if you were black in America. Or if they talk about the good old days of the 1800s, but before women could vote, it depends on who you are. It depends on what your interests are. It depends on whether you even give a shit about participating in society. But our ideas of what's good and bad change over time. Our ideas of what we want to do with our lives and who we feel like change over time. The only thing that remains consistent is that spark of spirit, which is you. Regardless of whether you take it to mean you're a God's creation or you're just an atheist who thinks you're just floating in space by chance. All of that doesn't matter either. As I said, religion won't bring happiness to most people, just like atheism isn't going to bring happiness to most people. But some will find happiness in them. The idea is just to be open to experience and enjoy the world around you. But you still have to build some values and a system that works for you. Because you'll get tread on, taken advantage of. There's a lot of scumbags out there who just want to hurt other people. But if we focus on just those few, then we miss the bigger picture. And so, to make my point, I guess, if you want to focus on the scumbags of the world, you're going to constantly live in fear that those scumbags are coming for you, or be angry that there's not enough justice. Whereas, you spend your time with people who care about one another, and you start to have faith in humanity, and what mindset would you rather have? Because we do get to choose. We get to choose how we interact, who we interact with a lot of the time. Not always. But we get to choose whether or not we want to even respond to somebody's nonsense claim that they make, or an argument, or somebody's judgment of you. What holds us back from happiness is giving a crap what other people think. But, on the same coin, what holds us back from happiness is also not giving a crap what other people think. And it always comes back to that balancing act of you can't be too far in one direction, and you can't, not do this, and you can't do just this, and nothing is exclusive. And I think this is why maybe I do have an issue with people saying if you just believe this, then you'll be the right kind of person, or you'll be content. It's always based on their own perceptions of what happiness is. So, in the end here, I'd like to say, you have no idea what happiness is. And I want to phrase this in a way that doesn't mean you've never been happy. I'm saying you as a person cannot define happiness. I cannot define happiness. Nobody can. It's not looking for a permanent state, especially. It's looking for those moments of joy where we are overly joyed by something random, something small, perhaps laughing at some obscene, obscure thing that we saw just randomly one day at that right time. Or a kind gesture, somebody doing something nice for you, or you doing something nice for someone else. And that's one of the big points, I think, here is that when we do something kind or say something kind to someone else, it's good for them and it's good for us. If we do something bad to someone else, it's bad for them and bad for us. Nobody benefits. Yet we continue to separate ourselves and point the finger at other people and say, oh, you believe in this God? Oh, you live in this state? Oh, you're this political group? Well, I don't like you instantly because you think differently, without even giving an understanding to why people think the way they do. You have to have trust that, for example, and if you really believe that half the people in your country are evil, then what kind of a God would create that reality, right? I mean, I can't, don't want to get into the religious aspect but it's a very important one when it comes to happiness for some people. They swear by it. And if happiness is the Catholic Church, I just don't want to leave my kid with a priest, I'll put it that way. But, I'm sure I'll get hate for that one. But it's a fact. I mean, we live in a world where we can't even trust some of our most trusted officials, whether they be priests, bishops, politicians. People are people. And my point there is that it doesn't matter what you believe or how strongly you practice something or what you think is right or how nice or kind of a person you think you are or how happy you think you are. If it's based on somebody else's problems, like the abuse of others or the abuse of privilege, we got to find it within ourselves. So, I'm out. It's already been too long of a video, but just wanted to get that out there. Put my hand on the steering wheel and I'm going to head out on a trip.